exactly. So we could do a few things that are just us. So right now we're calling the meeting to order for advisory, and we're just going to take a roll call. And it is now, I believe, what is it? 7:03. Helene Lee present here. Fran
Collins present.
Lee.
Lee Jenkins here.
Meg
Wheeler here.
Mary
McGoldrick here.
Rob
Hillman here.
I almost said Mike Dick. Hi, Mike.
Hello.
So you got that. So we're opening the meeting, and I guess, you know, we could do a little business, right? Until the right people are there.
Yeah, you could approve minutes and
Okay. Can we has everybody read, can we make a motion to approve the minutes of September 24th?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes of September 24th, 2020? And Helene Lee, aye.
Fran Collins, aye.
Jenkins, aye.
Meg Wheeler, aye.
Mary McGoldrick, aye.
Rob Hillman, aye.
Okay, so the meetings have been minutes improved. 7:03.
can I just ask? Someone's joined the meeting. I let them in as I don't know. They're labeled as holiday host. Could whoever that is identify themselves? So
It's Brian Host.
oh
Hey, Chris.
sorry. I'm a little slow on the uptake there, Brian. I thought you were like a company or something.
So 1, 2, 3.
So we're still missing. You need one more member, Brian, for a quorum for your committee.
5, 6. Oh, right. So we can't count Jean. So we have, however, we have a quorum because there's only 8 of us. Because we have to have 5. 1, 2.
Yeah, we do. You have 6.
3. Yeah, so we're fine. We're fine.
You're fine. But advise. Capital's still 1 short. Either Susan or Francine. Oh, somebody just joined. Oh, there's Jane. It's like old home week for you, Pat. You got Gina Stino here. You got Mary McGoldrick here.
Yes, wonderful to see you, Jean. She's just coming in. Hi, Jean. How are you?
Hi, Jean. I can't hear her yet. She can't hear me.
Her audio is still coming in.
Right. Yes. She said that it may take her a little to work that out because she's had some audio problems. I talked to Jean today.
Yeah, her audio is actually not working, so it's not
Right.
showing up as connected. So
Right. So she's going to work that out.
do you know Ralph or Brian if Sam or Francine or Susan are coming tonight?
Well, we know that Susan cannot.
Okay.
But I assume Sam can. Francine, I assume can, but I don't know. I'm surprised they're not on. Sam is very prompt usually, so there may be some. I think someone ought to call Sam and ask him.
I'll tell you what. I'll let me re-invite him.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Actually, Michael Dick, question for you. Have you gone to town hall and signed in to capital budget?
Brian, I can't. I've checked in several times. Town hall has still not received the confirmation.
Okay, so you're right. We don't have a quorum. I was just hoping maybe Michael is an official member, but he's not technically yet.
No.
I'm afraid not yet.
Yeah. The only one who has a quorum right now is the advisory.
Well, if you want, I mean, I hate to make you wait, Pat. I could give you. We could do a quick look at the financial situation for the first quarter, if that's okay, Helene. If you want.
No, I'm completely comfortable waiting to whenever the.
Okay. Yes.
I just thank you for letting me present. Yeah. So I'm completely comfortable waiting.
Well, let's.
I just resent the invitation, Brian, to Sam and to Francine. If one of you wants to give him a call or poke him while I present the financial.
Yeah, let me do that.
Okay.
Thank you. And are you presenting it, Chris, not again, right?
Yeah, Don is off today. Don is taking a well-deserved few days off to friends of golf with some friends. So, I think all of you have. I hope all of you have received the packet we sent out several days ago, and it gave a quick overview of where we are
Yeah, can you post that? I mean,
Yeah, I'm gonna put up on the screen.
yeah, totally. So everybody.
So if you give me just a second here.
And it could be helpful. Other people could see it. It's no big deal.
Can everybody see now if you're on a screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is the general fund. I'm just going to take a look at I'm not going to delve down into line items. This is just a quick overview of where we stand. So through the first quarter, through the end of September, we've 27.5% of our total revenues, which is paced by property taxes. Collections so far have been fine. Some people prepay, which is one of the reasons we're a little bit over. We've actually had one house that was in tax deferral. That means you could put it into abeyance, and when the house is finally sold, we get the money. The town gets its money and some interest. One of those came back onto the rolls this year, so we don't budget for that. So that was about $187,000, I think Don said. Otherwise, the state aid has been coming in, which is fine, and most of our other revenues are pretty solid. On the expenditure, I'll go to more detail on the revenue in just a second. On the expenditure side, again, we're right on target. We have employee benefits is up because is way more than what you'd think from a month to month basis, because we prepay our full year of pension, and we get a discount for it. We do that in July. And there's also, we do the same thing with our property casualty insurance. We pay the entire year and we get a discount for it. And again, as you can see, schools are just ramping up, so they're clearly kind of catch up really quick. So they were only at 12%, but again, they've only just started full operations. So again, just to take a look at year to year, this is the same. This is last quarter, first quarter, and this year's first quarter. Motor vehicle excise. We already projected a decrease. This is really just trickling in money from the past. We don't get our 2021 commitment until after the new year. Meals and room occupancy, we had already projected a decrease, and this is kind of online where we expected it to go. There's been some decreases in some other areas. One thing that's up, believe it or not, is building permit collections. I guess a lot of people are renovating their kitchens and bathrooms because there's been a fair amount of permit activity. That said, there's other things that are a little slow. But again, all in all, we're okay. Any questions on the general fund about this or anything that people have?
Any questions?
Okay.
Keep going.
Let me flip to sewer. Same thing with sewer. Give me a second. I'm watching the logins, and no one else has come in yet. So sewer has been benefiting from both people being a little bit more at home, and also people using more water, which is what fuels sewer. The revenues are at 28% through the first quarter, and their operational expenses are 19%, which is good. You can see how high the overall expenditures are, and that's because their debt service is front loaded. That's just the way the debt's paid very early in the fiscal year, so that's a big driver of early expense. Otherwise, their general expenditures are fine. Those are much more stable. In terms of revenue, one thing that's up this year already over budget entirely is connection fees. There's been another couple of services to sewer. They generally predict 2 or 3 because there's people who join, either flip from a septic to sewer, or sometimes there's a new house built. So there's usually 2 or 3, and they've had more than that this year. Log sign in. When you look at it from a year-over-year perspective, you can see that usage charges are up a little bit less than 14% quarter to quarter, which is good. There's also so that's a big difference. Otherwise, things are fairly stable. That's the biggest driver in the budget anyway, is the usage charges. Questions about sewer? By the way, for newish members and returning members, Gene and anyone else, if you've never toured the sewer or water plants and would like to, just let us know. Corey Evans was in the other day with Paul Caleri and Kerry Thompson. The three of them toured the sewer plant the other day. So it's a memorable tour. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, it's tucked off Elm Street, kind of across from the fire station and down a little road. So it's in the meadow. Just had a major replacement of its filtration membranes. So if anyone wants to go back in there. So no question on sewer very quickly.
Chris, is Paul on a board at the present?
Yeah, Paul Colleary is on the planning board.
Oh, the planning board. Good. Okay.
His wife's on the school committee.
Yeah, I know that.
So here is water. Water is actually having a particularly strong start.
Good. I'm not sure if you're aware, but they started the meeting already.
And so we
Bye.
the water revenue has been quite strong so far. Again, and the biggest being the water use charges, which are up, and that's the fact due to the fact that for 6 straight months, water use has been up year over year. It was up 78% or so back in June. It was only up about 3% in September, which is good because we're in a drought. So it's important that we not use water quite as much as we have. The other big thing is sale of water to Linden Ponds. Linden Ponds has built out another section and is looking to build out yet another section. So they're buying more water. It fits within the agreement, but they're buying more than they have historically. Their general expenses are only at 18% through the first quarter. And again, debt service is also front loaded, not quite as much as sewer, but so there's a lot, and debt drives the budget in water quite a lot. And again, if you look year to year, you'll see that usage charges are actually up almost 42% first quarter to first quarter. And that was driven by much greater use of water. So they actually have a good cushion going into the year. And again, you see sale of water is also up 73% first quarter to first quarter. Again, some of that can be a timing thing, but some of it is just sheer extra use from water. Otherwise, the revenues are fine. And those are driving a almost 22% year-to-year increase in revenue first quarter. So the water department is actually doing quite well. It's flush, no pun intended, or pun intended. Any questions on water? Okay.
No question.
All right. So since I'm still going to play for time here to give Sam a second to get on.
Yeah, keep going.
We actually have another, this was sent out just, this is not it. Hold on one second. Don also sent out a quick update on COVID, something he wanted to give you. This, and it's kind of complicated. I will show you the screen so far, and then I'll give a little more of an update. So the town has received a number of slices of money. Oops, someone just joined. Hold on. Let me make sure I get them into the meeting before I do anything else.
Yeah. Okay, Sam's there.
Excellent. All right. Do you want me to keep finishing COVID? And let me just give you the quick COVID, then you can just run it.
Yeah. Why don't we do the quick COVID and then we'll go to Sam.
So what Don has done is he's tracked our spending for the first quarter and the second quarter and through the year. So between March and June, spent about almost $282,000 on COVID-related expenses that were paid for by the grant. And these are the 7 categories, that was 6 categories that had to be reported, 7. The single biggest was PPE. Over $100,000 of personal protective equipment was acquired. A chunk of that went to the schools, but a lot of it was for fire and public safety as well. You can see cleaning, disinfection, and buildings, another big chunk. In the other category, which Don broke out to the right, if you see to the right here on the screen, there's the other category.
What is, Chris, what's RTF role?
The RTF is the recycling transfer facility.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was, the recycling. Okay.
So we purchased another roll-off because of the increased volume, and also to keep people more socially distanced, we had to kind of change the operations up a little bit. So we were able to pick another roll-off container. The town meeting costs were about $23,000, very successful, and obviously cost more than normal to run, but that was a grant-funded item. There was a delay in getting those membranes we were just talking about at the sewer plant, and we had to divert more flow to Hull, which cost more money. We were able to actually recoup that, or at least a chunk of that, through the COVID grant. And then you can see there's some other expenses. Park grab was actually for cleaning and prepping the bathroom down there. We had not opened that, and we had the staff to clean that up this year. So we were able to pay for that. For the second, since July 1, the town spent about $164,000. And you can see that some of that is spent on meals and grocery delivery. That's really for seniors. And of the $90,000 other, you can see the biggest expenses on that. We had to get some more storage space for PPE. So in the basement of the Deer Hill School, there's some more space carved out. And it needs to be secure and dry. And, we're storing a lot more than we had before to be safe. We actually paid for the management of the Sandy Beach parking lot this summer to help contain and keep social distancing and crowds down. They were staffed by Sandy Beach. We reimbursed them on a timesheet basis. So we were able to pay this summer with the grant. There's been adjustments in buildings. If you've been in town hall, we've had to put up some plexiglass shields and do a little camera system, all done by our staff. Tents for the schools and some other work, some furniture storage and a new trailer that we have to. The police now have to do all their arraignments and everything in person, and they don't go to the courts anymore. So they had to set up a booking trailer with Zoom capability so they could communicate with the judges and the defense attorneys. It's been a very interesting year. So year to date, if you put everything together, there's been $445,000 worth of grant spending. Now, how much do we have in total, you ask? Good question. There's been multiple slices of money. The single biggest is about $700,000 that came to the town directly from the state. Another 330 roughly has come to the schools directly from the state. And then when you add in a couple of other grants that we've gotten for public safety and for health, we're about at $1.2 million total in COVID-related grant money, which has all been documented. In addition, some of the expenses can be separately coded to FEMA. Now we don't get to double dip. So we've put in, I think Don's put 2 different applications totaling about $200,000 worth of FEMA reimbursements. They go to MEMA, which is the Mass Emergency Management first. And if that money comes back, then we get to repurpose some of the COVID money. So if it comes back by the time this turns into a pumpkin on December 31st, we can potentially, free up some of the money that was spent with COVID CARES money, again, on other very tied back categories. It's a big moving picture. Don is spending a lot of time. We've established, again, I see Michelle's on the call. She could document how complicated this has been, the things that we've had to learn on the fly. Michelle and her team have been, and Michelle is often her own team, she's done phenomenal work finding PPE all around the world, developing relationships with suppliers, keeping everything safe, making sure the schools had everything they needed. Glenn Pratt and Emergency Management have really doubled down. It's really been a great team effort. And as a result, we're pretty well stocked. We have people, I think, well into the new year, providing we keep the burn rates as we are. We have toilet paper stocked, and we have paper towels stocked, and we have gallons and gallons of sanitizer, and lots and lots of stuff has been done. So it's been a very interesting 7 months.
Chris, can you introduce Michelle and her role?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So if you see, I don't know, she's to my right on the second shelf there, but I don't know. Michelle's waving. Michelle Leary is the procurement and contracts manager for the town. She is in charge of all our procurements and managing major contracts. She's been doing really outstanding work. She has taken, like I have, the Mass Public Procurement Office, Certified Public Purchasing Officer tests. She's a certified procurement officer. And by the way, if people haven't met her from, I know she introduced herself when she first got on. Sue Owens is on the call. Sue Owens is the relatively new, since June, Baptism by Fire School Business Administrator. So welcome, Sue, as well. So with that, any questions about COVID or anything else with the budget?
I think we're ready to go to capital budget.
All right. So Pat, would you like me to give you co-host responsibility so you can show the PowerPoint yourself?
Yeah, that'd be wonderful, Chris. Thank you.
I have just done that for you.
Okay, super. Well, thank you everyone for having Sue and I here me here to speak to you. It's nice to see everyone. Nice to see Jean Estino in a new role here. I miss Jean over at the school committee, and I didn't get a chance to work with Mary or Helene when they were there, but I know you also were in that role. So Chris, have you given me the power yet? He did. Okay, good, super. Let me see here.
You have the power.
Awesome, thank you. Just rewind here. All right, so we're here today as Cohasset Public Schools, Sue and I are, to talk about and request funding for portable air cleaners. And I should mention before we start that these portable air cleaners are part of a comprehensive effort on the part of Cohasset Public Schools to make sure our students and staff are safe within our buildings. And they come as part of a process that is advocated by the CDC and the Department of Health that involves social distancing, and obviously for us, it involves having less students at this point in the building than normal, so that we can social distance them at 6 feet, but certainly at 3 feet. Mask wearing, which we have as compulsory for everyone that enters Cohasset Public Schools. Hand sanitizing, hand washing, and obviously part of it has to do with our airflow and specifically a ventilation, but in this case, it has to do with air changes per hour. So what our request is the Cohasset Public Schools is respectfully requesting additional funding for the acquisition of approximately 170 portable air cleaners for use in various learning spaces throughout the district. The request is really being made in anticipation of the winter months, where we have to shut some of the windows. We'll have to reduce the amount of airflow through our dampers coming into our rooms. And we want to make sure that we can continue to have appropriate airflow. And in some cases, we need to bring the airflow up to what studies are saying is appropriate. And really what we're talking about are air changes per hour. And air changes per hour, I've learned more about this than I thought I'd ever know, but air changes per hour really has to do with, just from a layman's term, the amount of outside air that we have coming in and circulating and moving in and out of a building, of a room. So 1 air change per hour means that the air has been circulated in and out once within an hour. And you saw, hopefully from looking at this presentation before tonight, that the study from Harvard, Chan School of Public Health from Harvard, under Harvard, notes that 5 air changes per hour is what's recommended. So again, that would have changes every 12 minutes. In many of our spaces, and we've had these, all of our spaces looked at by an outside engineering company called Bala, and they've analyzed the amount of air changes per hour within our rooms, every room in Cohasset Public Schools. And we found that some do not have the required air changes per hour. Our association is very in tune with this. And in our conversations and collaboration, in our research, we found that implementing these portable air cleaners into these spaces does increase the air changes per hour. Also, these portable air cleaners can improve air quality, and that has to do with allergens, other contaminants that might be in the air, and it obviously can be used to reduce airborne contaminants. You can see that the installation of PACs is really part of an overall process, and this is right from that Healthy Buildings Program study that's cited in this PowerPoint. Obviously, you want to ventilate with outdoor air within your HVAC system. You want to try to increase the filter efficiency as much as possible as you can in your HVAC system. But if you still can't bring the rates up to what we're looking at as a 5 ACH rating, then they're recommending portable air cleaners. And you can see the study that is cited here. And hopefully you've had a chance to look at it, and if not, you can certainly go back and take a good look at it before you vote on anything. This is right from the study where they list the air changes per hour, and it's based on 25 students in 1,000 square foot space. Essentially, it's the airflow rate divided by the room area, including the ceiling height, and it looks at what would be an ideal rating of 6 air changes per hour, excellent being 5 to 6, good being 4 to 5, and the bare minimum being 3 to 4, and anything below 3 ACH is not acceptable, according to many of the studies that we're looking at. So where are we in Cohasset Public Schools? And I've actually, I've linked the airflow reports in all of our rooms, so you hopefully had a chance to peek at that. That's present on this slide. But based on our outside engineering company, looking at our spaces, most of the learning spaces are between a 3 and a 4 ACH. Some are lower. We feel that the portable air cleaners that are rated to be for either 800 square feet rooms or 1,250 square foot spaces will add to the air changes and will bring us up close to that 5, if not beyond the 5 in our spaces, and it will be particularly helpful when we have to shut windows, when we have to reduce the amount of air coming in from what now is almost 100% to down to 30 or even 15% because the heat will have to kick on. We did find, and you should know as you look at these reports, that some of the values were impossible to ascertain due to the limitations of accessibility to air handling units. A lot of it had to do with the way they were measuring it, putting their bolometers, I believe they were called, up to a vent, and realizing that they couldn't get exact reading on some of the rooms. We did ask them to retest values in certain spaces where inconclusive results were reached. And you should know that right now, even though these, the 5 ACH is based on 25 kids in a room, we have less students in our spaces because of our hybrid model. So putting these air changers, or I should say portable air cleaners, in the rooms will greatly help and will absolutely work for the amount of occupancy we have in our rooms. This is what the air cleaners look like, or the air purifiers. It's kind of synonymous. We've identified, based on a study that I've cited in this and provided in this presentation, we've identified 2 models: the Medify Air Ma40 W2 V2.0 air purifier. It has an H13 HEPA filter. That means that's a MERV filter, which MERV stands for minimum efficiency reporting value. So the highest that these filters get are MERV 16. So these are really excellent filters that kill much of the contaminants that would be in the air. We also have identified a Medify Air Ma112 V2.0 air purifier with also a HEPA filter, H13, for learning spaces of 1,200 square feet. So actually the 1,200 square foot is down on the left part of your screen, and the smaller one for 800 square foot spaces is on the right part of your screen. That's what they look like in a room. So they don't take up a significant amount of space. They're not really that loud. We've tested what the decibel levels are on them. They shouldn't be a problem with our learning. So they're good units, and they're very useful for us, even in a non-pandemic situation. And I won't go into this, but I will if requested to do so. But this is the study that we used to identify the PAC models based on the calculator that is in that study. Now, the amount and cost of the models, and this is what we're asking, is 103. And these numbers are based on the spaces that we feel will need the air filters, so the air cleaners, I should say. 103 of the Ma40s. They run about $275 for a unit. That would come to $28,325. The larger units go for $499, and that would be $33,433. And then there's the filters. So the Ma40 filters actually have 2 sets of filters in them. So when it says a 2-pack, and Michelle, you can jump in and correct me, but I believe that's 4 filters, and they're to be replaced twice yearly. So obviously they'd have to be replaced once within the time we have them for the amount of time we'll be using them in the buildings. They'll be running, most of the time. Those filters are $58.50 for a 2-pack. So if you think about the amount of actual units we have, that would come to $6,025.50. And the filters for the larger unit, which is just 1 filter in a unit, are $138.50, and that comes to, based on the amount we need, which is $9,279.50. So in essence, our total unit cost is $61,758, and our total filter cost is $15,305. So the total cost for making sure that all of our spaces have the sufficient air changes per hour, with our current HVAC system also working into this, is $77,063. And like I said, this is a or like Chris mentioned, I should say, this source is coming from our CARES grant. And we feel at Cohasset Public Schools that this is a paramount really mitigation factor in making sure that our kids are safe and our staff is safe as we go into the winter months. So I want to thank you for consideration of this presentation, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. Thank you all.
Patrick, can you, Chris, can you get rid of the slideshow? Chris, thanks. Patrick, I have a question. Have these these units and filters been tested for COVID-19?
Yes, they're recommended. The HEPA filter is what's recommended for COVID-19. So that is, that's one of the reasons we're having them as well. That the HEPA filter is what's most important for these units.
So they have been tested in studies. I haven't had a chance to read the Harvard report in the Boulder.
Yeah, it's the air. The idea is that the filtration in this helps, but it's really what we're finding is the air changes per hour. So it's moving air in and out of spaces is what's very important. Right. And that's what these particular units will help us do, added to our current system of moving air in and out of the room.
No, that makes sense, but they have been tested.
Yes.
In large samples and stuff, not just one sample of one school district, but they.
No, you'll see that clearly in the studies.
Yes,
that it's in particular these filters that are really important in the units.
Yes, so they're like masks. We wear masks, and the building the units get filters like kind of like a mask.
Yeah, they do, and they can really reduce a great amount of the contaminants. But again, the most important factor for us is moving the air in and out of the spaces, which is what the studies from Harvard are finding. Specifically, the study I referenced from Harvard is of vital importance in mitigating the spread of COVID. Is moving the air in and out. If air is stagnant, that's when you can run into some problems. Chris, I'll be glad to call on people if you'd like me to. Is that okay?
It's actually how tonight's meeting, so however Elaine wants to handle it.
Yes, yes. I will lead that. Fran?
Yeah, these
I have several questions, and I'll read them all just in view of time. How long from the time you ordered till you received these?
Sam, Fran had a question first. Okay.
Oh, I thought you said Sam. I'm sorry.
No, Fran. Okay. Fran.
No worries, Mr. Wakeman. I'll get to you, I'm sure. No worries. Sorry.
I mean, normally for an HVA system, you want to have about 15% makeup air. That's the outside air that's coming in the wintertime. These units are being placed in individual rooms.
Yes.
So, but you're still recirculating the same low stale air, aren't you? other than you run it through a HEPA filter?
Well, no, it's supposed to keep moving. If you look at the study, it's to move the air in and out.
In and out of where? The space.
Well, the air's coming in through the filter up, or what do you call it? The damper up
The
top.
louver overhead, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and these units are basically conditioning the air and moving it back.
Okay.
So I don't aspire to be an expert on all of it, but it is moving the air out, which is important.
All right. Now the other thing,
conditioning it.
the other major combater of bacteria, fungus, and viruses are ultraviolet purification, ultraviolet lights. Did you look into that at all? Because the HEPA filter will take out that number you give you tells you how small the particles it takes out. And viruses, as we all know, tiny. So HEPA filters aren't always the best way to get rid of viruses, whereas ultraviolet light, it just zaps and kills them dead. We looked at ultraviolet irradiation and potentially bipolar ionization. Yep.
Those are the two things that really work. But the studies are a little shaky on it, and the idea of these filters was more readily, to be completely transparent, more readily acceptable by our unions based on their research. So I was ready to pursue either, but this was a more practical solution for them, and I felt it did the trick.
We won't get into an argument about what the unions know, what they don't know, but we use ultraviolet purification on water systems, kills all the bugs in water systems. There's a company called Second Wind, and they put them in on ships and in office buildings, and it kills all of the viruses and the bacteria, particularly on cruise ships. So that is the most positive way to kill the cooties. The HEPA filters gets a lot of them. But the other thing is, we've got to be sure we have adequate air changes in those spaces, and just recirculating the air, I don't see that as being an air change. That the air change is increasing the ventilation a little bit so that the air is coming in, going out, being recirculated. But anyway, I'm sure you've looked at that, but it just, I saw your proposal here and I read it over and I said to myself, I think we're missing something here. So, and I think the UV is the thing that, or even the ionization. I can't imagine why a union would be opposed to ultraviolet. It's totally benign, doesn't affect anybody, and it's
yeah, I mean the Harvard study does talk about these particular. I hear what you're saying, and actually, we've consulted our own HVAC folks, and they don't entirely disagree with you, Mr. Collins, but the study that really is being widely circulated and is being referenced even in my presentation is that Harvard study, and they are recommending these portable air cleaners in combination with our HVAC system, which of course has air coming in and out.
Right.
So the idea is that these help move the air through that, through the whatever the outtake is. So we're still going to have to, it's not like we're going to turn off our HVAC system. The idea is that we have our HVAC system that's pretty much rated for 3 to 4 air changes per hour, or some cases 2, and that these units, according to that study, will bring that up to a level of 5. It's particularly important for me in the interior rooms where you can't use the windows, which of course we know the windows bring up the air changes because you have direct outside air coming in from the window. I guess maybe that's a better way to explain it.
Well, moving air is always better than still air, but I don't see that you're getting any air change in the space just by running it through a filter. But anyway, let's continue on. Some other people have got some other questions.
I also hear what you're saying, and that was one of my thoughts working with my association. But the study is contrary to that. The study that it's in the presentation I provided does indicate that these portable air cleaners do move the air in a way that increases the air changes. So I'm not going to argue with you because I hear where you're coming from. I was making that point myself at one point. So
hi, Rob, and then Sam. But first, Rob, do you want to do something quick? Because Sam has
I have 2 very brief questions. One is more of a Chris question, but it might be a Pat question. Is for the advisory committee, what precisely are we going to be voting on at the end of this, if anything? We got a request that says, we'd like to get funding, but is there going to be a specific motion, a specific vote for us to take so we can start thinking about what this conversation leads up to?
That's an excellent question. So we're kind of in uncharted territory on this a little bit, right? We haven't had a $1.2 million worth of federal money thrown at us for a pandemic. So, which I hope obviously never to go through again. So because of the sheer, we've been just grinding along through this grant and doing what we're doing. This is the single largest purchase we're going to have made from it. Because this is going to have to be accompanied, by the way, with some mirror work on the town side as well. We're going to have to put some air cleaners in some other. We don't have an air change problem in these buildings. We don't have any air changes going on here. So except that, we have open windows and leaky windows. So we're going to have to do something. And again, it may not be exactly this, but there'll be something similar. And again, we want to keep the cost at a reasonable level. So this was circulated to make sure that it got, got input and reviewed by the two key boards that review things, particularly capital. The question, and again, capital could decline jurisdiction tonight and say, we've asked our questions, we're good. You don't necessarily have any. So this is more kind of a running it through you folks to get questions answered and be fully transparent about this level of purchase. I'm not sure at the end of the day if you necessarily have to take a vote. You most certainly could and say, we think this is a good idea, or you might recommend that we do various things going forward.
And also to clarify, in a conversation I had with Chris, the money is already there. They're not asking money for us to take out of a reserve fund or anything like that.
Yeah, this is a grant fund. I mean, again, normally we apply for grants, we go and we do things. This is just a very unusual world, and again, this is going to be the single largest. When you add the expenses that we'll have to do on the town side, this will be over $100,000 worth of equipment. It's a fairly large chunk of money. It is COVID related money from the federal government. It's still money, and there's still long-term implications for these things.
But at the end of the meeting, if we're going to vote, the advisory committee would be voting in favor of this expenditure from that grant money.
Yeah, that would be one possible vote. Yes.
Okay. My second and short question is for Pat. Is there a return to work agreement with the Teachers Association? And if there is, has the school committee made specific commitments to air purification equipment within a contract with the union?
So right now we are still in the process of bargaining, and we don't have any stoppage of work. So we go back.
You can't have one of those.
Correct. So we have our staff is fully reporting and doing great. But in the bargaining, this is a major concern for our association, and so it is something that we believe we need to attend to for that reason. And their major point of contention is when the winter months come. I feel confident we will have there's just a few areas that we are not seeing eye to eye on. This was one of the major ones in terms of what they felt was necessary, and this is a kind of a compromise for us moving forward.
I don't want to talk about the details of collective bargaining
sure.
In an open meeting, but you've answered my question, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And Sam now? Oh, wait, Jean, do you want to ask a quick one? Because Sam has a list. I can't hear you. Okay, can't hear you.
Sorry.
I haven't started to speak, but.
No, Jean. Okay.
No, I don't have a question. I am kind of familiar with filtration systems because of my work. My concern was the pricing for the filters and how often they had to be replaced, but I think that those questions have been answered.
Okay, and I was referring to Jean, the other Jean.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Jean HD. I can't hear you. She has to turn on her.
You're muted there. There you go, Jean.
Okay. Right. Yes, Jean.
Thanks, Sam. Please go.
Okay.
You may ask the question I have.
Okay. Sam, go.
Okay. Sorry. First question is, how long from the time you order till the time you receive these will it take? Second question is, how long will it take you to install them? And is there an added expense in installing them? What happens if you do not get these air filters? Does the school close down or what happens? And then what are you going to do with them when this pandemic is all over?
Okay. Great question, Mr. Wakeman. I'll start with, I think, the easiest one there for me, which was, is there a price for installing them? The answer is no. These are a very simple plug in the wall models. They're portable, so we can move them into different spaces. We do want to work with our fire department. We've already started that discussion in case some of these have to be moved towards the middle of a room to get the appropriate flow, but that's not an insurmountable task for us. In terms of the ordering, I'd actually defer to Michelle a little bit on what her thoughts might be on that. She's done such a great job with our procurement in the town.
So after speaking with the vendor, it's going to take approximately 4 to 5 weeks from the date the PO is placed. It's a buy to back order currently. They do have stock coming in 2 weeks. However, they've already fulfilled orders using that stock. So we would have to wait for the next manufacturing date.
Yeah, and that is of concern to us. So that is what we do want to order them as soon as possible, because clearly and that would lead into your other question, Mr. Wakeman, about, what happens if we don't get them. Well, if we don't get them, clearly we're going to try to utilize the fresh air we have as much as possible, which means windows open, our dampers open as far as possible. Mr. Collins was absolutely correct. They usually rated at 15, and we've been opening to 30. We're about 30 is when you have conflict with the heat, I've been told. We actually have them open, our dampers open further right now. So I think we're going to run into some problems if we don't have a more long-term solution. And quite frankly, I want to make sure everybody's as safe as possible too. I want to make that really clear that, I feel that these do add a level of safety, and we can debate on how much of it. And then I think your other question, Mr. Wakeman, was about what do we do with them after? Well, these are also very handy in making sure, like keeping contaminants, cleaning the air, contaminants out, I should say. They're nice to have in spaces. The air quality in buildings that are of any age it's not always the greatest air quality. So these are very handy. And we have had situations where we've had to install these air filters for individual staff or individual students who might portable air cleaners for students or for staff who need them, and these will be really well received and used for forever, in my estimation, as long as the life of our buildings here, which will be good.
Thank you.
Did I get all of them? I know you had a.
Yes, we have some more questions. Mary, and then Ralph. And then
so will these air filtration systems be something that are the property of the schools or the property of the town afterwards? And I'm asking primarily for post-COVID life, if it is something, obviously the interior rooms in any buildings are the main concern because there's not window access.
Yeah, well, the main concerns are really the rooms that had very low air changes, and there's various reasons for that. But most of them are the interior rooms because you can't mitigate that with a window. These are coming out of technically the town CARES grants. So I would think we'd just collaborate on that, Chris. I don't know the answer for, maybe Sue, you can help with that in terms of what the funding source means for who actually is has the ownership of these.
Technically everything by everybody's owned by the town, right? But if they're assigned to the schools and they're there for the schools use, so that's where they're going to stay unless there's a need to, repurpose them, and they don't need them, right? So my expectation, these are really being purchased with a grant for the schools.
Right, but these are items that, look, if we're we're needy in other places would be, very sharing with these, put it that way. I mean, that we know what's happening here. We're trying to deal with a very difficult situation, and if someone else was in that situation, these would be going to them as well.
Thanks, Pat. Ralph?
I have a very different cut on all of this that I think you may find kind of a different way to look at it. My question would be, what problem are we solving? If you've got a COVID grant, it would seem to me, and leveraging a little bit off of what Fran said, the obvious thing is what you're trying to do is reduce the transmission of the COVID virus, right? And it strikes me that the air handlers, the way they are described here, are probably not particularly effective in doing that, because obviously they don't have either ultraviolet and or any other mechanism by which they actually kill 1 micron particles. So it is a really question as to what problem are we really solving here.
Mm-hmm.
And number 2 for me, I think is, when you think about what you really want to have happen, you want to actually reduce the potential for an outbreak of virus within the schools. And I understand social distancing, hand washing, and masks. All of that were very valuable. But it ain't sufficient generally if you get, in fact, one individual who infects a lot of others. And there's a lot of data that indicates that when people are close together within 15 minutes or so, and you might have read some of these articles, one of which was actually by the NFL today in the Wall Street Journal, which talks about exactly these problems and why people actually get the disease, and because it's close contact. And number 2 is that at the Broad Institute, they have at MIT, they have found, working with Colby College, Amherst, and other colleges, that testing frequently and actually making sure that you know who the spreaders are and actually getting them quarantined is the key to all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, wouldn't you spend money more effectively if you're really dealing with COVID problems in trying to do something which explicitly deals with COVID, not necessarily with air handling? And again, just to leverage again off what Fran said, I tend to agree that moving the same air through a filter is not changing air actually increasing it. So anyway, that's just a comment, but I would love to see something in the way of how do we make sure that there is no spread of the disease, which is number 1, and to be the number 1 issue in a school, and number 1 for students and number 1 for teachers. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Lee?
Ralph, the problem is a union problem more than anything else, and this solves the union problem, so be it. But my question is, who's going to maintain the equipment, and is the problem with the disposal of filters?
Well, and obviously, Mr. Dormitzer, it's the conversation between droplet nuclei and the aerosol nature of this. As Mr. Jenkins said, the union is really pointing towards this being an aerosol helper. In other words, and the study that I did present in the PowerPoint, which I would ask you to look at, and the Harvard studies, there's a couple of them, do actually mention these as being helping the air changes. So, I get what you're saying, but I think there is some conflicting research around that. What was your question, Mr. Jenkins? I'm so sorry.
Who's going to maintain the equipment?
Yeah, maintaining the equipment is our custodians can. It's a very easy change of the filters. These are very small units, relatively. So our custodians can change them twice yearly, not a problem. We don't anticipate this being an overtime situation. In terms of disposal of the actual filters, because I understand what you're saying for contaminant sake, we would obviously use proper PPE to do that. I don't know the answer to that, where they'd be disposed. Michelle or Chris, any thoughts on that? No, that'd probably be something we'd work with Glenn Pratt on, to potentially help with that. So that's something I'd have to investigate, Mr. Jenkins.
Hey, Jean Healy, default. Jean Healy?
Hi, Mr. Sullivan.
Hi.
I just want to add, I don't think this is just a teacher problem per se. I know parents have been asking about this because children are, sitting in school with coats on now. And so that is something that there is an expectation among the parents that this is a part of studies that have come out, and the school is working on addressing in due course. Moreover, on the UV issue, I understand that we all want to, find the right approach and way. The FDA, though, has said with respect to UV rays that the science is inconclusive on that, including with respect to long duration for children at certain ages. So I do think that from a parent standpoint, those are considerations.
Yes, you're correct. The parents absolutely want this, and the studies that our own HVAC group was looking at with the ultraviolet irradiation, they were a little more long-term in suggesting that we do anything in that regard, because of what they felt was a little bit of inconclusive results. However, I do understand what Mr. Collins was speaking of. It sounds like from experience too. So, but yes, you're correct. Parents do want it.
Thanks. Fran and then Mary again.
All right, the UV system is not out in public view. It's in a K system. It's in the plenums. So there's nobody is exposed to ultraviolet rays or radiation. I mean, so whoever's coming up with that sort of a scenario was dead wrong. The UV is totally contained. You don't see it, and you're not supposed to look at it because it can be injurious to your eyesight. So it's not something that's going to be, nobody's going to be exposed to it unless they deliberately go up and open up the plenum and open up the cover where the UV tube is, look at it,
Yeah. Right. For whatever reason, Mr. Collins, in the studies that I cite in my PowerPoint, these air cleaners are not recommended to have the ultraviolet irradiation in them. From what I was in my research, which is just research, I don't know a ton about it, but that would be more in our units that are in our classrooms, not portable.
No, you're correct. In the distribution system. That's where they're in the distribution system.
Exactly. So I just want to make it clear, it's not an option for these portable air cleaners.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
But the point is to go back to what Ralph said, we want to be sure that we're killing the cooties. We don't want the bugs out there running wild and infecting everybody. And that's about the most surest way that I personally know to kill them. A HEPA filter is a wonderful thing, but it's not the last word. Okay.
Yeah, statement. Fran, before this meeting, I didn't have a chance to read about, because we just got the report yesterday on Colorado and Boulder and also Harvard. But I have been doing research on the UV. I think it's promising, but as Jean said, there's some inconclusive stuff in terms of the coronavirus and this. I think, unfortunately, time's not on our side in terms of really doing a comparison study. I looked online and I consulted some people, in fact, an environmental chemist at MIT, my friend, and he looked up, they haven't done enough study comparing the different methods. And so, I agree with you, Fran. I think down the line, unfortunately, we in 2020 are a guinea pig situation here. That this caught us off guard, and the studies about UV are not, like Jean said, is conclusive.
All right, well, let's just drop it at that. But we've been using it in the marine world for years and years very successfully, and nobody's done it. So.
I know, and it's too bad that it didn't get out in the main studies, at MIT and other people in environmental science. My friend is, environmental scientist, and he deals with the environment and all this kind. And he also knows somewhat. He's not an expert in UV, but I did ask him some backup. But I feel like the kid who doesn't know enough to even ask the right question. So I would need an environmental degree in engineering in order to really hone in on good questions for him.
This has been a solution embraced by many districts across the Commonwealth, I'll tell you that. I did put it out there to other superintendents, and I immediately had 15, 20 responses, which I've shared with Chris and Chief Sylvia.
And and I get it, and time is of an essence. But Fran, I would like you and I maybe to form just a little private little study, the two of us, and maybe Ralph joining us. And either it's for practical or academic purposes, I would really like to understand more about the use of UV. Okay,
Sure.
because I don't think this is going to be our only game. COVID-19. There's going to be other things coming down the pike, and I would really like to study that. You know, Mary, question.
Pat actually already answered it. I was just curious about our peer districts and what they were doing. And I would just, you know, as this is money that's already in the bank, I think our job is really comparing it to this expense as to maybe what else it could be spent on. But if you have the teachers for whom this is very important and the parents for whom this is very important, and obviously the students, you know, I think it seems to be a good solution for the moment.
Right.
Yeah, it's a part of a larger approach with all those other mitigating factors, Mary, and where this falls on that list is somewhat debatable, but it's certainly one of the recommended CDC mitigation factors against the spread of the disease.
And I think it's important to, you know, look at, you know, to listen to what CDC is recommending. But I don't want to ignore Ralph and Fran's concern. As a person who has math and science background, not as much as my MIT colleague, I really think it's a good idea, Fran and Ralph, that we look into it more, you know, for the future. May not be for now, but for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I really respect Ralph and Fran that you bring up these comparisons. You know, we shouldn't ever have to, you know, I think that whether it's a minority opinion or whatever like that, it's really important to vet things. We just may have to make a decision now, because this seems to be, you know, there might be some in the boat, you know, in the maritime, they've been more used to doing UV stuff, but out there, I couldn't find like any comparative studies. So I was kind of shocked that I didn't, but that I couldn't. So anyway, go on. Thank you, Pat. Are you done with this presentation?
I think Mike has raised his hand.
Okay, hi, Mike. You want to speak?
Hi. Susan Franklin from CBC sent out an email today. She has done some research on her own with a resident of the town, Rob Wilms, on an alternate solution, which to my lay perception seems to be well worth a review. I know nothing about it, only that it cleans air and surfaces, eliminating periodic surface cleaning, cleans HVAC system, colis, and ductwork, curing sick building issues, and so on and so on. So I would be looked at. Susan Knight, and in fairness, I feel someone should bring her work to this group, number one. Number two, I'm really puzzled why we haven't heard from Brian Joyce on this. Brian involved, and can he provide us any guidance?
Well, Brian isn't as involved in this as, in fact, he hasn't been. It's been Nick and Mark Kelly, Nick Berardi, who are facilities, you know, have worked closely with me and with Mara. And they've done great work in getting our HVAC system running at as high rate as it can, and really working with the controls to make sure that, you know, we're getting the maximum airflow coming in and out, dealing with the heat. So they've been very in touch and in step with us. And, you know, this is really an extra factor that there's some differing opinions on how important it is, but, you know, I think everyone sees that there is some value to this. There are some individuals who feel it has more value than others. And I absolutely respect, you know, the comments of others on this call here. And, you know, I don't proclaim to be an expert in HVAC or airflow at all, but, you know, my study and research, which you see in the document I presented, shows that these are important, and our parents and our unions feel they're very important. So that's why I'm here advocating for them, because I feel that they can make a difference along with masks, social distancing, and the other factors that we presented as hopefully mitigating COVID spread in our schools.
And then as far as Susan's proposal or suggestion, not sure how we want to proceed in that proposal for some review and add to the research being done.
Well, I think that's something the capital budget, you can get together and figure out on your own how you want to vet, comment about this. But this is a conjoint meeting so that we could all, so Pat doesn't need to do it twice.
For longer term solutions, though, I think you're looking at either UVC irradiation or bipolar ionization, if that's something that is better for our units, I think is very smart. And I also think it's something recommended. This is not a long-term, although I do believe it'll be helpful. I think that might be a more permanent thing. I just don't think it's the right time to do that. Maybe look into it, but not to do it.
Yes.
And we're in a pandemic right now, so.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Chris Senior.
I think Pat's made a thorough presentation. You have Michelle's given you additional input. We are in a very unusual world. Which is the reason that we're throwing out a big net, making sure there's a lot of input. And if capital and/or advisory are prepared to make some decision tonight, that's great. If not, just let us know and figure and where you're going. I mean, one of the challenges here, as Michelle's already pointed out, is a delay, and the longer we go, the longer it's going to be to get these things, which is school committee's made this a very high priority of theirs, which is the reason that we're meeting tonight.
Chris, it's Brian Host. Can I just revisit the question of placing the order? Do we actually have this money or do we not?
Yeah, we do. The money, we have the money in the bank sitting there. We got all the COVID money in advance.
Okay.
The funds are available, and then Michelle was able to find. One of the challenges, Brian, was that when we were sorting through this is that the initial request of the specific model we couldn't find on any kind of state contract, and it would have taken months to procure. Michelle's been able to find a vendor on the state contract that can actually supply these things. What was the time again, Michelle? I don't remember what you said.
4 to 5 weeks.
4 to 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
Yeah, 4 to 5.
You mentioned earlier, Michelle, that these are made to order.
They're a buy to back order.
Okay. What happens? Sorry, I just need to plug in here for a second. What happens if we order these things and they don't show up until next summer?
So unfortunately, there are no guarantees. We were looking at a different model prior to the teachers union coming up with this solution. Yep. And the model that we were initially looking at, they gave us a lead time of 12 weeks. However, did caution us that some orders were placed in June and have still not arrived. So there are no guarantees. We've spoken to the manufacturer directly. There are 2 vendors on state contract that have distribution rights to these. I've gotten quotes from both of them, as well as lead times from both of them. They seem consistent. So there's no guarantees, but we can just hope that we're getting the truth from the manufacturer.
Right. Can we cancel the order if they don't deliver?
Yes.
So we can cancel the order. This is the challenge. You can only cancel the order within the first 2 weeks. So you won't know if they're going to deliver.
Right.
So they're protected. That's
meaningless.
Right.
So they're protected even if they show up this time next year.
Yes.
That's.
You don't have to pay for them.
Yeah, you don't have to pay for it. You're not paying up front. You're not paying until the product's delivered, but it doesn't help us with our solution.
No, it doesn't.
Lee?
Yeah, because of the union, it's a union problem. This is what this
I
is. as far as
totally
I'm-
understood. We can debate whether or not it's a placebo. It's
And
irrelevant.
I say the advisory board should go ahead and approve it. Let's get the pressure off the superintendent.
Yeah. Okay, is there a second to Leland's recommendation that the advisory should approve this purchase? Rob?
Second.
Okay, let's take a vote with the advisory. Helene Lieb, aye.
Fran Collins, aye.
Lee Jenkins, aye.
Mary McGoldrick, aye.
Rob Hillman, aye.
Okay, and so we have the, yes, that is a support. I believe that's, was it 5 of us, because Meg is not here, right?
No.
I think that's 5-0, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I just have a question, Helene or Chris. How exactly is this wording for the vote? So we approve the purchase? I mean, these are not reserve funds.
Recommend we support the purchase of
Okay.
$77,163.
Okay, thank you.
That's presented.
Could I call
Funded by COVID
the
cares.
Yes. Funded, yes.
capital budget? Can we, I'm just trying to, we have enough for a quorum, barely. So capital budget, the motion on the floor is to what was your wording on it, Mary?
Support the purchase.
Support the purchase of the air handlers. And we'll do it as a roll call vote. Ralph?
I'm going to abstain, Sam.
Excuse me?
Abstain.
You abstain. Brian?
Aye, Brian Host.
Sam Wakeman, I would support the purchase. So we've got a 2-0-1 vote on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, but so that is the end of the combined meeting, I believe.
All right. This is thank you, everyone, for getting together on short notice. Thank you, Steve and the team. We'll be circling back on more capital stuff soon, I promise. In terms of the next session, and again, thank you, Pat. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, we sincerely thank you guys too. Thank you very much for your thoughtful consideration.
Well,
So keep up the good work. I know you've got a big job in these times.
Thank you, Brian. Very much. Thank you.
So we're going to circle back here. We've had Ellen just wants to join the meeting, so she's a little late to the game, but I'll let her.
Yeah, well, I don't
let her
think-
move in. So we're going to have to move to another platform for the executive session.
Yes, and also I believe that Gina Stino did not get the executive session link.
So let me explain. So all of you about.
Sorry, I just got it a little
Yeah,
bit ago.
all of you about 30 minutes ago from Miriam should have gotten a new one. The original one didn't work. We're having some technical issues. So I'm going to shut this meeting down in a minute.
Okay.
Everyone to confirm to me that they got the Miriam Johnson email at about 7:48, 7:50.
If it's on Outlook, I got it.
Yeah, you should be. Because that's what you're going to need to log into when I close this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thanks,
All
everyone.
right. Thank you, everybody else. I'll see you.
We have to adjourn the meeting. Okay.
You can adjourn and go into an executive session.
Okay, so roll call to adjourn, I believe, right?
Well, you need to close this. You need to actually go into executive session.
I make a motion to go to close this meeting and go into executive session at this time. And I believe it is now 8:16 p.m. Somebody second the motion?
I'll second.
All in favor? Leave aye.
Fran Collins, aye.
Lee Jenkins, aye.
Mary McGoldrick, aye.
Rob Hillman, aye.
You want me to read the purpose into this, Rob, just to be okay? This is executive session exemption number 3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigated position of the public body and the players. Do you so declare, Helene?
Yes.
The committee will discuss labor negotiations for the 7 municipal side labor unions.
Yes.
You voted unanimously. We're going to close this and then we.
Okay.
Okay. See you in a minute.
Great. I think Sam needs to adjourn capital budget, Chris.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, we do. Is that okay, Brian?
I make a motion
Okay.
to adjourn.
Second? All right, I'll second it. All those in favor of adjourning capital budget? Ralph?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And myself, aye.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.